Understanding how identity works in Space Station is very important for security officers and those trying to evade security alike. Your identity is based off of your character. For example, this person is named Ruben. They have their ID on, which is their round start ID, which identifies them as Ruben. As long as they have nothing uncovered, aka they don't have their face covered, and they drop their ID, I will still be able to fully identify them as Ruben, no problem at all. However, though, anyone with security HUDs that can see job icons will now see that this person does not have a job icon, and that is indicated by a question mark. However, for identity, that's not all that important, but it can play some importance when we involve criminal records. However, let's just focus on identity at this exact second. So if this person now puts on any form of face cover that actually completely covers their face, I'm not going to go through every object that does that, you can confirm that the person or yourself have properly hidden your identity when you now become a descriptor of what you are. This is a middle-aged man, and they have no job ID. However, if this person puts back on their job ID, even if they just hold it in their hands, they are now re-identified as Ruben, and this would change to the name of whatever ID they pick up. So if they pick up just a captain ID that has no name, it will say middle-aged captain man. So even though their identity is hidden to us, they are holding an identifier. So this is an unmarked agent ID. So if I drop the PDA with them and pick up the unmarked agent ID, they have the passenger logo, but there's no name on it, so now they're middle-aged passenger man, and it would be like middle-aged captain man or security man, depending on whatever the ID is, if it's blank and has no name. If this person were to still speak, I would still completely be able to identify them as their real name, and it would still appear above their head. If they step a few tiles away and they're whispering, it now will have their descriptor again, middle-aged passenger man. So if you're far enough away and whispering to people, it will not be a dead giveaway as to what your real identity is. That means security officers need to be close to actually hear their people talking. And of course, this gets more advanced. There's things like voice masks that can change what your voice sounds like, but I'm again not getting into it. This is a basics guide. All you really need to know is that if you have your face covered and you don't have your normal ID on, you'll be described rather than having a proper name. And just to go further with this and try to make it makes as much sense as possible, I'll give them my ID. This character's name is Jealous or Jealous, I don't exactly know. And pick up the ID, walk away, and whisper. I will now they will have my name, even though I can hear them whispering. If they step slightly further away to the point you can't hear them whisper at all, I will still see their name because they are holding an ID that has a name on it. So I see them as that name, and even though I can't hear what they're saying, it still identifies them by their name. This system does actually get more advanced. So that person is still holding my ID, my character's name ID, but I can't physically see them. So when they try talking, it will actually just say someone whispers. So if you have a stolen ID and the people can't actually physically see you, you're still going to be obscuring your ID. Now here's another interesting thing. If I drop the ID and they say hi again, it will still say someone. So if you're holding a stolen ID or something and you're talking and somebody hears you on the other side of a wall, you don't have to worry about getting metagame because you're just going to be someone no matter what ID you have. You just have to be cautious whether or not the people you're talking to or talking near can see you and can identify you have a stolen ID. Okay, so we're going to move on to how wanted statuses work, because this is also very important to understanding how to hide identity and understanding identity. Okay, so this person has their original ID back on. If I go to the criminal records computer and just set them as suspect, they will now have this exclamation point, and we're just going to be using this for reference. So they have an exclamation point, and what this does is actually makes their body, aka their identifier, wanted, and it makes their PDA wanted. So even if they drop their PDA, see how they're still wanted. But if they put on a mask now without their ID, I don't know who they are. They're back to being an undescript person, just a middle-aged man. However, again, if they put back on their ID, they're now wanted because they are identifying as the wanted person. So if you steal an ID of somebody who's wanted and your face is covered, you will now be wanted. However, even if you yourself are wanted, uncover your face and put on a non-wanted ID, you're still wanted because I could identify the person that is wanted. So TLDR for this is that when you make somebody wanted, you are marking their PDA as wanted and them as wanted. So if I can identify the person or identify the stolen ID, regardless of who's wearing it, it will mark that person as wanted. This does get more in depth, and I will cover it, but it's not too hard to understand. There are a few items in the game, there's a few items in the game that syndicate agents can use specifically to more or less get around ever being wanted. There's the DNA scrambler and the agent ID card that we talked about earlier. Agent IDs can fake your name, can fake your job department, and fake your job icon. So essentially, you can just kind of copy yourself as whoever you're trying to impersonate, or just pick a totally random name. And as long as your face is covered, that basically makes it so you can never be wanted because it's a stolen ID, and that ID can never be marked as wanted because it's not part of the station. Not all masks will actually cover your identity, and I think not all helmets cover it either. You just have to pay attention to yourself. If you see your name when you shift click yourself, your identity is not hidden. And there is also the DNA scrambler implanter that syndicate agents can purchase. So this person has used a DNA scrambler implant, and they have changed into Jonas Hardy. Well, I can never make this person wanted again because they don't exist on the records, so there's just no way to ever mark them as on the records. However, it's interesting if they put on the ID of Ruben and then put their mask on, that will make them wanted again. So if you're playing a syndicate agent and you're aware that your original identity was labeled as wanted, you need to pretty much ditch your original ID so people can't catch you with it. There is also the event that can happen called a clerical error, which will randomly delete people off of the criminal records computer. So now that the original person, Ruben, has been deleted off of the criminal records, I can actually pick up the ID now. And since that person never existed in the criminal records according to the event, they're no longer wanted. So even though they're identified as Ruben, they're not wanted. So this is very important for security to keep an actual paper trail of specifically wanted people or specifically dangerous people, because you never know when people are going to get deleted off the manifest. This is also why you can't just walk up to a random person that has a name that isn't on the manifest and be like, oh, that's a DNA scrambled person. How do you know that? It could just be somebody who got their records deleted. So you need to keep a close eye on the events of the round, and if there's a clerical error, names are no longer reliable and wanted statuses become no longer reliable. Syndicate agents that are aware of how to abuse the identity system for their own benefit will basically make your job much more difficult. You're going to have to go back to pen and paper because the computer systems in nanotrescent stations are rather unreliable. One last thing to cover is syndicate voice masks. Voice masks are primarily used to change what you sound like and can even make you sound like a different species. These masks can also be made to look like pretty much any mask in the game, if not every mask in the game. So there's no easy way of just instantly identifying that someone has one of these. The primary purpose of a voice mask is make you sound like anyone that you want. And this can mess up the identity rules a little bit, because even if you directly look at this person and you hear them talk, they will have the voice of whatever the voice mask wants. So that means they actually don't have the voice of their identity, which can help keep up the illusion of who you are. However, though, it becomes very obvious if you sound like somebody that your ID doesn't match up to. So my ID is Jealous or Jealous, whatever, and I talk, well, I don't sound like them. So if the name doesn't line up with the ID, that instantly outs them as having a voice mask, because otherwise there is no way to not sound like your identity, other than the fact that if it says someone. Thank you for watching. If you have any additional questions, please leave them in the comments. Try to keep this short and simple for once. The agent ID can fake it. The agent ID can fake the name. Agent IDs can fake your